Mataconda77 very generously gave me a year's worth of subscriptions on Patreon and brings you today's video. Yoshimaru and His Human Reyhan versus Runetail, Kruphix, and Adrix and Nev. Very good opener for us. Likely going to get into a lot of mana this game, so we will keep. Turn 1 Soul Ring from Kruphix, and that takes him into Howling Mine, so we're all going to be getting a lot of card draw this game. Just a Kabira Crossroads for Kitsune. And then we do draw 2 cards, of course. That is Assassin's Trophy along with Abzan Charm. Gonna have to discard a card here, unfortunately. Can't do anything on turn 1 other than get down our Yoshimaru Commander. And as much as it pains me to do it, I think we'll get rid of the Abzan Charm. I just think that we're going to have to make use of Eerie Ultimatum this game. We see no maximum hand size from the God player in Spellbook. And following that up with Upwelling. First spell from the mono white player is Ashes of the Abhorrent. And then it's even more removal from us. We see the new Farewell. And Mythos of Nethroi as well. So we can get ourselves down to 7 cards in hand here, thankfully. Let's crack the fetch land. And we'll go for the 3 visits as well, grabbing a Triome. And then we might as well swing in with Yoshimaru. You never know when the combat damage or the commander damage is going to be relevant. We'll take that in at Kruphix. Treasure map from Adrix and Nev. Wanting to double up on the treasure tokens, no doubt. Azusa for Kruphix with only 4 cards in hand. And then over to the mono white player's turn, they get a Golden Glow Moth. And an Endless Atlas as well. We get another land for the turn, which is easy to get out of our hand. Also a Sylvan Library as well. I think we're going for Skyshroud Claim before anything else though. This can get some untapped forests. Just going to grab the shocks here. They're the only things that are available to us. And I will take 4 life and shock those in. Swing in Yoshimaru at Adrix and Nev this time. Haven't done the best job of putting plus counters on Yoshimaru just yet. I'll just hold up the Assassin's Trophy, I think. A Rhystic Study from Adrix and Nev. Noteworthy that a Mystifying Maze is in play from the Kruphix player as well. And then playing as their second land for the turn, a Fertile Thicket. They've also got Academy Ruins in play. And now it's Freyalise Llanowar's Fury. I thought we were going to be seeing Kruphix there, but deciding on the Planeswalker. And they do pay into the Rhystic Study tax. Plussing on Freyalise to make a mana dork. And we see a criminally underplayed one from the white player, Authority of the Consuls. They'll gain a lot of life from that over the course of the game. And then Runetail, Kitsune Ascendant is going to flip round into the enchantment as soon as it enters. So the reason that I didn't play out the Sylvan Library last turn was because my plan was to go Farewell and get rid of the Kruphix. But yeah, apparently not going to be able to do that because they went for Freyalise instead. So let's get rid of Freyalise with Assassin's Trophy. Because Farewell won't get rid of Planeswalkers. We are going to have to feed a card to the Rhystic Study player, unfortunately. They did fetch up a blue mana with Assassin's Trophy, so hopefully that 1 card in their hand isn't counter magic. We draw Lifeblood Hydra to start the turn off, and get ourselves a Solemn as well. But I do want to go for Farewell here. Gonna leave the creatures alone because there's not really any scary creatures. Just going to blow up artifacts and enchantments. I think I'll leave the graveyards alone as well because I want the Eerie Ultimatum to be really good. And we do have an extra mana to pay for the Rhystic Study. Alright, so successfully managing to wipe the entire board there. That should give the Kruphix player a really hard time. And then we'll continue to take Yoshimaru, still with no plus counters on it, into the Adrix and Nev. Speaking of which, the Commander coming into play now. Kruphix just getting their God into play. Now we see another God from the white player, this time Heliod, God of the Sun. We draw ourselves a Sword of Hearth and Home, just drawing 1 card now that the Howling Mine's gone down. So I think that would be a nice bit of ramp for us. Let's play out the Sword of Hearth and Home. We can equip that to our Commander. And then we'll swing in towards the Kruphix player. We do have protection from their creatures. Nothing to flicker with it yet, but that will be really good with Solemn Simulacrum. We are still going to get an untapped land. Plenty of basics to grab out of the deck. And then just to progress our board a little bit more, save mana for later on, we'll put 2 mana into X for this Mikaeus. And we can start getting plus counters onto the board finally. Mikaeus is legendary, so it gives a plus counter over to Yoshimaru. Well, that didn't last long. Crackdown, going on to the sword. So destroy an artifact or enchantment, create a treasure, and they do get 2 treasure tokens thanks to their commander. Doubling cube for the Crucifix player. Can make all the mana in the world, but still only has 2 cards in hand. Now seeing Arcane Lighthouse from the white player. And they go for a Karmic Justice, so gonna have to be careful blowing their things up. Another land for us is excellent, would like to keep dropping those. So not going to be able to abuse the sword of Hearth and Home, but we'll play out the Solemn Simulacrum anyway. And then let's get Reyhan into play here as well. And finally, might as well get down the Sylvan Library. Now Yoshimaru is a 3/3, so we can deal some commander damage to the mono white player this time. Alright, but in response, the Crucifix player decided to go Mystifying Maze to save another player some life. Maybe just trying to knock the counters off Yoshimaru. I mean, definitely showing us that they don't have anything else to do. So at the end of the turn, Mystifying Maze triggers and Yoshimaru comes back in tapped, this time without the plus counters of course. Worryingly, Adrix and Nev just passing through to the other Simic player. And Crucifix plays Mirror Maid, likely copying the Sylvan Library I would think. And yes, it does become a copy of our Sylvan Library. Runetail Kitsune Ascendant coming back into play. And they are north of 30 life of course, still at 42, so that flips straight round into the enchantment. And no damage can be dealt to their creatures. At the end of their turn, let's tap down the Mikaeus. We can put a plus counter on all of our creatures. And then we get our first trigger with the Sylvan Library. We first draw into Conclave Mentor, which is going to be really good with the Mikaeus. A legendary permanent in Ajani, which also goes really well with Mikaeus. So I'm actually going to take the full 8 life here and keep all of these cards. Obviously drop the land first of all. Let's get the Conclave Mentor into play here, start doubling up all the plus counters. And then we can go Ajani. Triggers the Yoshimaru, putting 2 plus counters on it now. And then with the remaining mana, going to risk leaving Ajani in play for a second and go for Lifeblood Hydra. Only 1 into X there, but we will get 2 plus counters and then we're going to put even more on it with Ajani. Alright, so everything managing to come into play here. Let's distribute the 3 plus counters, which will actually be 3 lots of 2. 1 can go on the Conclave, 1 on the Hydra, 1 onto Mikaeus. So a bunch of counters being distributed there. Going through to attacks, we will go for Solemn Simulacrum down the middle. Reyhan at Crucifix as well. And we'll send Yoshimaru in that way also. Really want to try and pile as much damage in there as possible, especially when they're holding that Mystifying Maze up. And I don't like the fact that they've got the Sylvan Library as well. Maybe should have removed that. Anyway, they do go for the Mystifying Maze onto the Yoshimaru again. And then blocking Reyhan with a Mana Dork, allowing the Solemn Simulacrum to go through. Tapping out here, Adrix and Nev didn't do anything during the last turn cycle. But now going for Rite of Replication. Alright, 5 cards in hand and they are going to get a lot of Solemn Simulacrum tokens here. 5 from the Rite of Replication, doubled up by Adrix and Nev, is obviously 10. So 10 Solemns going on to the stack. Hopefully they've got enough basics in the deck. Looks as though they do. And then just sitting back on an army of Solemns, so they stand to draw 10 cards when those die as well. Just 1 card in Crucifix's hand as we go over to his turn. And deciding to draw 1 extra, so taking 4. One of them was a basic. And then we see a Wild Defense as well. And just passing it at that, still with 1 card in hand. Protector of the Crown, the first time the monarchy is being introduced into this game. That comes from the white player, of course. So they draw a card at the end of the turn thanks to the monarchy. And on top of that we will add to the stack Mikaeus the Lunarch, a couple of plus counters on every other creature. So the Lifeblood Hydra becoming more and more relevant now with regards to refilling our hand. Okay, get ourselves a couple of lands. I think we can stand to put the land back on top. Kodama is a good means of shuffling for us. So we'll play the Yavimaya for the turn. That is a legendary land, so Yoshimaru gets 2+ counters. Already up to a 5/5. And then we'll play the Kodama of the West Tree, another legendary creature. So once again triggering Yoshimaru. And we'll plus on a Ajani and spread some plus counters around again. That can be Kodama, the Hydra and Machias. And we've now got trample on all of our modified creatures thanks to the Kodama, so should be able to get some damage through nicely for some rampant growths. Still trying to deal as much damage to the Crufix player as I can before they completely refill their hand, so just going to send these creatures with trample in towards the Simic player. Need to make sure to try and hold back blockers as well though. Mystify Maze once again going on to the Yoshimaru, which is a 7/7. And this time they do block the Conclave Mentor with the Azusa. Not sure if they realise that that has trample. Saving themselves a couple of damage at least. So giving them a good hit for 9 down to 20. And those two creatures obviously hit. So a couple of rampant growths from Kodama of the West Tree. Oh, that's a scary one. That might have to eat removal. Old Gnawbone. Not with Adrix and Nev and a bunch of creatures in play. Problem is they've probably got counter magic over there, but starting to turn in sideways with Solemn. So it's a bunch of creatures going into Ajani, and then 4 Solemns going at Crufix, and some are coming in directly at us as well. So we'll go through to blocks. I'm going to block all the creatures that are going in at Ajani to try and protect that. And then we'll block one of the Solemns coming in towards us as well, so we don't take as much damage. Then in response to blocks, we'll go for Mythos of Nethroi. Not going to be able to put that on the Sylvan Library, unfortunately. It's going to have to go on to the Old Gnawbone here. Don't see it as often as we used to anymore, thanks to the speed of the format, but Cyclonic Rift from our opponent. Playing against Zuldinga, patron of the channel by the way, don't know if I mentioned that before now, but a massive thank you to Zuldinga for supporting the channel monetarily. So everyone's just going to be rebuilding their boards here. We do see Crufix again. And then Runetail back into play once more. Followed by the Karmic Justice. And the Golden Glow. The Monarchy still under control of the white player, so they draw again. Well, that's pretty good timing. We draw into the Reliquary Tower for no max hand size. Go for Yoshimaru first of all, before we start playing legendaries. And then Conclave Mentor to maximise the number of plus counters that go on things. Then we'll go Reyhan, followed by the Solemn again. And then we'll just put 2 into X on the Machias because it's still going to come in with 4 plus counters on it, thanks to the Conclave. And that leaves us with 2 mana for the Sylvan Library. Alright, there's a Mana Leak. Don't often see that one anymore, so Mana Leak going to successfully counter our Sylvan Library. Can always get that back with Eerie Ultimatum later on. Okay, finally going to start dealing some damage to the white player. All of those Solemns turning sideways at Runetail. So they finally get to block with that Moth and gain 4 life, negating 2 of the Solemns. Still take a big whack and go down to 28 though. And they will take the Monarchy over there as well. Ugh, now we see Jingataxius Progress Tyrant. Oh, that's going to be really tricky. I was actually thinking of going for the Eerie Ultimatum on our next turn, but not going to be able to with Jingataxius in play. Crufix, as ever, floating a bunch of mana into its next turn. And out comes the Doubling Cube again from Crufix, but that will be countered by Jingataxius because it's the first instant sorcery or artifact that's been cast this turn. So that allows Crufix to get out a Temple Bell, which is hopefully what they were intending. Followed by a Mirror Maid. And the Mirror Maid copies the Karmic Justice from the white player. Then activating Temple Bell, we all draw a card. That gets us into Eternal Witness, so maybe we can go for Farewell once again. Mechanized Production. That is enchanting the Temple Bell, which is interesting. And then we see the Wild Defiance again. Protector of the Crown going to steal the Monarchy away from the Simic player. Then it's Serra Ascendant, 2 below 30, thankfully, so only going to be a 1-1 lifelinker. Need to watch out for swinging into that Moth because it will buff it during combat if anyone decides to swing in over there. Abzan Ascendancy for us could be useful, putting a plus counter on all of our stuff, as well as keeping us in creatures when things die. So let's throw out the E-Witness. I'll go after the Farewell. Not sure how we're going to get Farewell past our opponent, but yeah, I think we're going to need to rely on Farewell as best we can. Can easily play out Kodama of the West Tree again though, so we'll do that. And then we can just go for 2 into X onto the Lifeblood Hydra again. And follow all of that up with Abzan Ascendancy. So everything getting 2 plus counters on it from that. Yoshimaru once again up to a 9-9. So we could take out the Crucifix player here. I think we need their help to get rid of the other Simic player in Adrix and Nev. Seems like they're the biggest threat now, thanks to that Jingataxius and the army of Solemns. So let's take Yoshimaru in towards Adrix and Nev. Well, unfortunately, in response, they've got something. Druid's Deliverance, prevent all combat damage that will be dealt this turn and populate, so they can make a copy of a Solemn Simulacrum. And that does get copied by the Jingataxius, so each Druid's Deliverance is going to give 2 Solemn Simulacrums, thanks to the Adrix and Nev, so 2 mana for 4 Solemns, pretty damn good. So they decide to just chump block with 1 Solemn Simulacrum in order to draw a card. Druid's Deliverance only stops combat damage on you. Oh, that's a scary one with all those Solemns. A Curiosity Crafter. No max hand size, flying, and whenever a creature token you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. So, Solemn's turned in sideways towards Crucifix to finally get rid of that player, maybe? Looks like they're taking Jin in towards Crucifix. And then, yeah, there's a bunch of Solemns coming in towards us. I think they're just dealing exactly enough damage to the Crucifix in order to get rid of them. But we've got a hell of a lot of Solemns to deal with here. Might as well take as many tokens away from them as possible because they're going to draw a card either way, either from hitting us or from losing the Solemn. So successfully getting rid of Crucifix, they get a bunch of triggers, drawing from Solemn's dying and drawing from Solemn's hitting us with Curiosity Crafter. Yeah, that Rite of Replication has really done wonders for Zuldinga here. Now we see more token shenanigans, this time it's Fairy Artisans. And that is followed up by Dance of Many. And they decide to copy Protector of the Crown. Alright, so going to get 2 copies of that. Each one going to give them the Monarchy. Then the first spell into Jin this turn is a Sol Ring, so they get 2 of those. Followed by Simic Signet. And then we see the first Iroan Games, which is going to generate even more tokens. So not looking good against this player. They've got 13 cards in hand, still mana held up, and a bunch of permanents in play. Well of Lost Dreams for the life game player is going to get countered by Jingataxius. I'm not really against it. I mean, yeah, the Hydra is going to refill our hands, so yeah, that's pretty good. Hour of Revelation, 3 mana, blow everything up. So in response, we might as well make the Hydra even bigger. We'll tap down Machias and put a couple of plus counters on everything. Yeah, but in typical Simic fashion, they've got counter magic backup, so that is 2 counter spells going on to Hour of Revelation. And the best part is, we can't even try and go wide and deal damage to the Simic player because they've got Protector of the Crown now, 2 of them. And we just get into a land, so do we just have to throw away Eerie Ultimatum to go for the Farewell? I'm just going to try my luck here and throw away the Solemn Simulacrum. I don't think we're going to lose the Hydra in combat. Yeah, blocking the Solemn with the Serra Ascendant, which is going to be a 6/6 thanks to the Moth. So blocks are declared, the Moth goes on the stack, we'll bump them up to 32. And then that will, of course, buff the Serra Ascendant. So the 6/6 Solemn Simulacrum going to trade with the 6/6 Serra Ascendant. So Reyhan going on the stack as well. We'll just pile the plus counters that were lost onto the Hydra. And then Solemn triggers and we draw a card. Oh, getting to Greater Good. That's awesome. Yeah, I've been wanting a sack outlet for the Hydra all this time. Or for at least someone to destroy the Hydra, so yeah, Greater Good is excellent. We'll get that down straight away. Going to finally refill the hand, sacrificing the Hydra. We'll draw us a bunch of cards and we'll discard 3. Reyhan can dump the plus counters onto the spirit that we just made with the Abzan Ascendancy. And drawing a hell of a lot of cards here, we'll be able to set up with the Eerie Ultimatum by discarding specific cards, but we'll just get rid of some lands here. We can play the Kodama's Reach into the Jingataxius in order to switch that off. And now it's a case of trying to bait out counter magic. We do have a Dam, so if we can go for the Heroic Intervention and then go for Dam, that should be pretty good. Alright, but our opponent has Narset Reversal, so yeah, getting 2 of those doesn't do anything at least. But they're going to make their creatures indestructible here, annoyingly. Okay, so we are reliant on the Farewell then, I think. We've got an unlimited hand size, so why don't we just sacrifice anything that would be exiled, and we can bring it back in with the Ultimatum after the Farewell. Try and be more tactical with setting up the Eerie Ultimatum. We'll discard the Branching Evolution, the Cat. I think I saw Akroma's, yes. Akroma's Memorial can be reanimated as well. So after that, sacrifice Kodama, and once again put Abzan Ascendancy on the stack. Reyhan can buff one of the spirits again. At least this way, if the Farewell gets countered, we'll have a bunch of big spirits to block with. This time discard Good Fortune Unicorn so that the X toughness creatures will enter with some toughness. Discard Cathar's Crusade and Champion of Lamhall as well. Then sacrifice the Conclave Mentor. We will gain a little bit of life from that dying. Okay, so you got the gist there. Sacrificed a bunch of stuff, drew a bunch of cards, discarded a bunch of permanents to set up the Eerie Ultimatum. Did draw into Mana Crypt, so that is in play now. We can hold up Teferi's Protection, not just Heroic Intervention. And we'll go for the Farewell, exiling all creatures, artifacts and enchantments. And here's hoping that one of the 11 cards in the Simic player's hand isn't counter magic. Alright, awesome. Managing to land the Farewell, so making use of that twice this game. Might be the last ever Seb McKinnon card that we see in Magic the Gathering. So after that we can set ourselves up with the Ozolith. I don't think we necessarily need to hold up Teferi's Protection. Might be a bit risky to not hold that up, but yeah, I think I'll just go for the Mana Gorger Hydra. Maybe should have gone for the Hardened Scales instead of the Ozolith actually. So now after all that we see Adrix and Nev coming back into play. Following that up with a Doubling Season. And then it is a Prosperous Innkeeper, so that will make 4 treasure tokens I think, thanks to the Doubling Season. Following that up with Fated Infatuation, we're getting into the realms of potentially making the client struggle here. Yeah, so that is 4 copies of the Innkeeper, and each of the 4 copies will bring in 4 treasure tokens. So if you're not a regular Magic Online player but you're looking to play, yeah, putting lots of tokens and lots of triggers on the stack like this is a good way to get the client to break. It's not the best game in the world, but hopefully it will behave itself here. Alright, surviving the client not crashing here, on to turn 12 of the white player. Runetail coming in once again after the board wipe, and that will transform to stop any damage going on to his creatures. Okay, so make it back round to our turn fairly unscathed. Let's drop the Ancient Tomb, not sure how much mana I'm going to need on this turn. Let's get rid of Dromoka's Command to get rid of the Doubling Season as well. They can sacrifice the 1 enchantment that they have. And then we can also get rid of Adrix and Nev with the fight. Adrix and Nev does have Ward 2, but we've got the mana to pay for that. Well, they've got something in response in typical Simic fashion. And that is a Spell Swindle, so going to counter that and make a couple of treasure tokens, that's alright. Better to counter that than the Eerie Ultimatum. They didn't wait for us to pay for the ward either. They should have waited for us to pay for ward before putting the counter spell on the stack. Would have put us on 2 less mana, of course. So I'm just assuming that they've got way more counter magic in hand. They've still got 8 cards, so let's go for the Forgotten Ancient here. And then I'll try to continue to bait out counter magic from them. Heroic Intervention, and we'll set up for the Dam to blow up all the creatures. Mana Gorger and Forgotten Ancient putting counters on themselves, of course, every time a spell is cast. And then we'll play the Dam for the overload cost, destroy each creature. The Heroic Intervention did land. Oh no, that's a second harvest. The client was struggling already. Oh, that's not good. How many triggers is that going to put on the stack? That's going to be way too many, I think. I think that's going to be way too many permanents, a second harvest here. For each token, they're going to get 2 more of them, thanks to Adrix and Doubling Season. So it multiplies their token count by 3. And then it's all the triggers from the Innkeeper as well, because that does gain life on entry. Yeah, I think this is going to be way too much. I think the client's going to crash here. Yeah, I just said to my opponent that this might crash the client. It's not posting in the chat, which typically means that the client has crashed. Oh yeah, and there we see loop detected. Game is a draw. I'm not sure about that. That might just be a generic thing that gets thrown up in the log when the game has crashed. Yeah, and there we go. Game starts to replay itself. And yeah, that is the game over. That's a real shame. That's one of the best showings that I've had of this deck. And yeah, real shame to see it end like that. I think if we could have landed the Eerie Ultimatum, then we might have been in for a win there, because we did have haste from the Akroma's Memorial. So yeah, really annoying when that happens, but you just cannot put that many permanents and that many triggers in play. It really, really hinders the client when there's lots and lots of tokens and triggers on the stack. So if you're ever thinking of getting into Magic Online, just keep that in mind. I think the number of permanents that can be in play is like 250 or something like that. Yeah, we can't go putting tens and tens of triggers on the stack and hundreds of permanents in play. So yeah, that's just what happens, unfortunately. Hopefully you all enjoyed it anyway. You'll have seen the warning at the beginning of the video. Let me know if you want to see more from Yoshimaru and Reyhan. I'm tribalkai on the EDH channel. Thank you for watching.